Dr. Shyam Sundar Desar, and he is a principal scientist in the Division of Vegetable Science. And he obtained his undergraduations from TCKV and his MSc and PhD from IRI. And also he did his postdoctoral research at University of Western Australia. His research mainly focus on cucumber genetics and breeding. And he is a recipient of several honors, including the University Merit Scholarship, ICR JRF, SRF, IRI Merit Scholarship, Postdoctoral Research Fellowship at University of Western Australia, and Indo-Australia Early Career Science and Technology Visiting Fellowship by INSA. And he is the Fellow of National Science Academy of Agricultural Sciences and Associate of NAS, as well as Associate Fellow of IAHS, that is Indian Academy of Horticultural Sciences, Indian Society of Vegetable Science Society also, as well as he has also served as the executive member of Indian Society of Vegetable Science, and Sir received a lot of awards. That is the DP Ghosh Young Scientist Award from 2023, and was recently honored with the ICR Rashtriya Krishi Vigyan Puruskar Award and INSA Fellow also for his outstanding contribution to the vegetable science, particularly in the cucumber breeding. And he is also the Fellow of Indian Society of Vegetable Science. Sir, please, you can take your lecture, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Silva, for your kind words. So, just Silva, I just wanted to know that regarding the participants, they are all the assistant associate professors from different universities.
Yes, sir. Exactly, sir.
Okay.
200 participants, sir. 200 participants out of 260% are female, and remaining participants are gents.
Okay.
They all are associate and assistant professors.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Silva.
Thank you, sir.
So very good morning, friends. Today we'll be actually, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for giving me the opportunity to interact with you guys for a large number of the actually young minds, and as well as giving me the opportunity to discuss something about the cucumber, what we are doing actually, what is the advances in the protected cultivation technology and the breeding strategies. Actually, as informed by the organizer that we'll be interacting at the end, although I actually prefer during my classes to be an interactive one, but anyway, we'll be discussing this one at the end. And in the lecture, we'll be mainly discussing the cultivation of the cucumber, which are under the protected cultivation, that is the what kind of the cucumbers which are grown, and what are the actually basic requirements. And what are the advances in the future? What we can do to do the cucumber cultivation more profitable under the protected conditions. No? So you see, all of you must be knowing that most of you will be from the horticulture background. That when we are talking about the cucumber, there are two different types of the cucumbers, no? Which are grown in India as well as throughout the world. One is the what you are growing for the open field condition. They are generally the non-parthenocarpic type. They need pollination for fruit set, just like other fruits. And another, what we are growing under the protected condition, they are called the seedless type, sometimes Chinese or the French type. They are actually the dark green type, which are parthenocarpic type. That means they will not require any pollination for successful fruit setting. As a result, if there is no pollination, that means there will be no fertilization. There is no formation of the actually embryo and the no seed formation. That is why we are calling it as a seedless cucumber. One of the major advantage of the seedless cucumber and the factors for its popularity is mainly because of the its flexibility, that you can grow this kind of the cucumber almost year round if you have some kind of the protected structures, particularly net house as well as the poly house, which is required particularly during the winter season. However, during the mild climatic region where the temperature is not so high, we can do it even without any kind of the temperature control within a simple ventilated net house condition. Besides, you see, this kind of the cucumber, they give a very high yield because the initial investment is very high. You have to have very good return. For that, you see these kind of the cucumbers in a normal cucumber plants, the kind of the yield you will get up to 1.5 to 2 or 2.5 kilo. But here, with the proper cultural practices, it is possible to get a fruit yield of 5 to 8 kilo, depending on the cultural practices and the cultivars you are choosing. No? So these are actually suitable for growing year round. However, one condition is that they have to be parthenocarpic. Secondly, you have to have some kind of the protected structures. And when you have the protection structure, then the other cultivation practices also you have to modify or you have to adopt them accordingly. So these are the main features of the parthenocarpic cucumbers, which are grown for the protected cultivation. You know, all cucumbers cannot be grown under protected conditions. They have to have certain kind of the actually requirement, mainly the gynoecias and the parthenocarpic. Gynoecias means each and every node. You know, the cucurbits, mainly the cucumber, they are monoecious in nature. Both male and female flowers will be there in the different nodes. And normal open field cucumbers, they are the monoecious, where the number of the male flowers are much higher as compared to the female flower. So you are getting the lower yield. But in case of the gynoecious type, you will have the actually female flower each and every node. And secondly, because you do not need pollination, there is no need of any male flowers. Secondly, they will also have you can have the cultivars which are having the multiple number of the fruits in a single node, which are called the multipistillate type. So this kind of the F1 hybrids are also available. That is why the yield of this cucumber yield potential is tremendously high. And if you have a net house or the poly house of 1 hectare, it can give up to 50 tons. It can give around 50 tons per hectare, 50 tons per acre of the net house, generally the yield potential of these are. Besides you see as per the advantage, these fruits are the uniform and they are free from any kind of the bitterness, which is another problem in case of the open field cucumber. If you take the open field cucumber, particularly Desi Indian type, many a time you will get that there is the problem of the bitterness. So you do not have these kind of the problems in case of the gynoecias and the parthenocarpic cucumber. But the condition is that you have to have the gynoecious trait and the parthenocarpic trait. They need to have been combined together so that your cultivars are suitable for the protected conditions. If they are not gynoecious, if they are monoecious parthenocarpic, then also that will not be suitable. And again, if they are gynoecious in the non-parthenocarpic, then also they will not be suitable for the protected cultivation. So you have to combine these two traits together, gynocism as well as the parthenocarpic, to breed any cultivars which are suitable for the protected conditions. And you see, when we are talking about the different climatic condition, the optimum temperature, which is actually in case of the cucumber, it is around the 30 degrees Celsius during the daytime and maybe the 5 to 10 degree lesser during the night time. However, these kind of the temperature condition, which is flexible and plus minus 5 is allowed up to 35, even up to 40 degrees Celsius, the cucumber grows well during the daytime. However, during the night time, around 30 degree also suits well. And the relative humidity and the other sunlight, because these type of the cucumbers are very sensitive, particularly to the sunlight. If you don't have the sufficient sunlight, the growth of these actually structure, growth of these cucumber genotype under protected conditions are retarded. That is why you see we cannot use any shade which is having the more than 30% of the shading. So during the summer, we must be using some kind of the shading structure and the shading actually nets. So whenever you are selecting the shade net, you should keep in mind the shading percentage of the shade net should not be more than 30% for actually optimum growth of these gynoecious parthenocarpic genotypes, what will be growing under the protected conditions. No? And they are suitable for the polyhouse. It could be the net house and then generally naturally ventilated net house in the North Indian. A lot of the structures in all North Indian plain condition naturally ventilated net house are very good. However, when we are talking about some of the high altitude area like Himachal Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, then Uttarakhand, we can grow them even year round under polyhouse condition also. Even in the plain condition, polyhouse structure can be used if you have some kind of the cooling mechanism, fan and pad system, so that you can take this crop in a year round. And when I'm talking about year round, it means 3 times in a season. 3 times in a season. The first season will be you will be sowing and planting in the month of the January to February end, and maybe up to the March. It will grow up to the June. Then again from the June to it will grow up to the September, October. Then from the October, November, again it can grow up to the February. So the crop cycle of the cucumber is around 3.5 to 4 months. So you can adjust your sowing and the planting time accordingly as per the prevailing environmental condition of a particular area where you are taking the doing the cucumber cultivation. As I actually told that these kind of the cucumbers are mainly grown under the protected condition. Why? Mainly because of the fact that they are the parthenocarpic in nature. They are parthenocarpic in nature. They do not require any pollination, so that it can develop a cylindrical, uniform shape and size fruits without any pollination. But in case there is any pollination, or if some honeybee and the insect visit the flowers, what will happen? The size of the fruits generally get distorted, and you may not get the uniform, cylindrical, attractive kind of the fruits what you naturally get in case of the parthenocarpic structures. So different kind of the structures are being used based on the available resources and the prevailing environmental condition, and most commonly used are the naturally ventilated polyhouse, then fan and pad greenhouse if you need some kind of the cooling, particularly during the summer season in a climate like Delhi. Then we have to have some kind of the fan and pad kind of the structures. Then shade net also we can use. In some of the places, around 50% shade is also being used. However, when you are using the shade of more than 30%, the growth of the cucumbers got actually retarded. However, during the summer season, the intensity of sunlight is very high. During that time, you have the flexibility to use a little bit more percentage of the shading net, maybe up to the 50%, but only during the summer season. Then low-cost tunnels are also being used, particularly in the Rajasthan. A large number of the area in the Bikaner and the surrounding from the Jaipur to Bikaner, you will see lot of the low-cost tunnel, particularly for the cucumber and cultivation of the kachri. However, here you may have, if you have a very high-tech structures, if you have a very good and the high-tech structures, there you will need automation for the different conditions like temperature, humidity, fertigation, and the carbon dioxide control. And these kind of the high-tech structures are being used in the different developed nations, particularly Spain, Italy, and then your France. They are using whatever cucumber they are cultivating, all are the gynoecious parthenocarpic and the greenhouse cucumbers, and they are growing them under automated temperature and automated environmentally controlled greenhouse where temperature, humidity, and fertilizer application is controlled based on their requirement and based on the whatever the sensors they are using in the soil as well as the upper conditions. So just to show that different kind of the structures which are being used, if you are growing them during the summer season, particularly these kind of the shade house will be very useful, and the green net is being used very commonly in growing of the cucumber, particularly during the summer season. However, the most commonly used structures are the low-cost polyhouse. Low-cost polyhouse means these are the naturally ventilated. You have the polythene seat in the top as well as in the side. You have the flexibility to roll them actually up or roll them down, so that during the winter you can convert the entire structure into polyhouse, and during the summer where temperature is little bit higher, you can roll them actually up the polythene so that there will be the natural ventilation, and these kind of the structures are most commonly used. However, when you are using these kind of structures, the net what you are using is very crucial, and the actually insect-proof net that should be used, and there should not be any entry of the insects like whitefly and the mites from the outside into the net, into your net house. You have to take care of your kind of the nets you are using in these structures. Some of the farmers, even those actually with the very little resources, they are also growing the cucumbers, even in some bamboo structures, which are a temporary structure. So they are creating polyhouse-like structure using some of the actually cheap material like the bamboo, and they are using the nets so that naturally ventilated net house kind of the structure can be created, and they can be used very successfully for cultivation of the cucumbers, particularly the parthenocarpic structures, parthenocarpic cucumber. And these are the most commonly used structures which are being used. And when you are actually growing inside, you see even within the net house with the bamboo or some kind of the wooden structures, you can convert it into the poly house or the net house based on your requirement, so that you will be using a suitable polythene structure, you will stabilize polythene structure at the insect proof net house, whatever you are using. And these are the low tunnels which are being used very widely during the, particularly during the winter season. They are doing the sowing in the month of the actually December, so that the crop is started coming from the month of the January end and the February first week, and they are getting a very premium price. So they will keep the crop around 30 to 45 days inside these structures. Thereafter, they will open this actually low tunnels. So these are all the naturally ventilated what we are talking about. Besides the naturally ventilated, there are some of the semi-climate control structure which are also being used, like the exhaust fan along with the evaporative cooling with the fan and pad system. And the cost is a little bit higher in the structures, and they are being used in the different conditions. So based on your available resources and the environmental condition, when you are intended to grow the cucumbers, you will be selecting the particular structure what will be used in that conditions. Then for nursery preparation, you see the here in case of the Gynoecius parthenocarpic cucumber, the seed is one of the most important import because the cost of the seed is very high. Here the single seed cost around 8 to 12 rupees per seed. So you have to use the seed very judiciously, and the nursery preparation is very important because you will not have the flexibility to waste any seed. Each and every seed should be used to keep your input cost in a minimal. So generally around 10,000 to 12,000 plants are grown in a per acre. And the sowing media, you can for the nursery, you can use different kind of the sowing media, whatever you have. But however, the coco peat, vermiculite, perlite, which is the most commonly used, but it is not necessary. You will be always using the coco peat, vermiculite, perlite in a particular ratio of the 3:1:1. If you have the coco peat, you can even mix the coco peat with the vermicompost. If you don't have the vermiculite and the perlite, you can mix them with some kind of the FYM. If you have the good quality FYM, that can be actually used. It is not a very strict media. However, coco peat actually they actually facilitate proper aeration, and they prevent the damping off and the proper growth of the root system. That is why the coco peat based media are most widely being used. But this is not a very strict rule that allows you have to use the coco peat, vermiculite, perlite in the nursery. Then, however, the pH you have to maintain around 6, so that your media they will not allow the growth of the any undesirable microorganism, as well as it will enable the optimum utilization of the nutrients and the moisture from the actually soil. And in the portrait, generally you can use the 50 actually cell portrait or the 98 cell portrait, whatever you have. But whenever you are doing this kind of the condition, this kind of the nursery, and you are growing cucumbers in a particular structure year after year, you have to take care that proper sterilization of the soil in the nursery, as well as the nursery medium what you are using, as well as the actually soil where you are planting is very important, because there will be the accumulation and build up of the different microbes, particularly nematode, mite, as well as the different diseases. So you need to actually sterilize the soil very regularly, and at least once or twice in a year. Just like your growing condition, nursery also you have to keep a actually temperature of around 30 degrees Celsius, which is a little bit higher in case of the nursery conditions, so that which facilitate the proper growth of the seedling. And after the sowing, you'll see the germination will take place within a very short period of time, 2 to 3 days. And after for proper growth, you can use some of the liquid fertilizers which are available in the market. And 19-19-19 is a very commonly used, which is used at the rate of the 1 gram per liter. And transplanting can be done within 18 to 20 days. You see the cucurbits are very rapidly growing. They have very rapid growth. So within 3 weeks, you can have your seedlings and you can transplant them in a desirable condition. These are some of the high-tech nursery which are being used. There is one village in the Rajasthan. If somebody of you from the Rajasthan, they must be knowing that is the Basera cluster in the near the Jobner. They have around 1,500 polyhouse and the naturally ventilated polyhouse structures for mainly doing the cucumber beside the capsicum and the rose. So you can have, they are doing each and every stage in a commercial level, actually from nursery up to the cucumber production. They have commercialized the nursery also. They are producing within their particular structure they have. So nursery preparation very scientifically you have to do inside the poly house. This is one of our farmers. This is IRI fellow farmer, and he's a very, very progressive farmer, and he has more than actually 20 poly house as well as the commercial nursery in the different cucumbers. Then land preparation and the bed layout. I am not going into detail about these things because they are available routinely in all the literature. You see, you have to have some kind of the raised bed and the height of the 30 centimeters. You should use some kind of the drip irrigation along with the liquid fertilizer, because here the yield per plant is very high. So plant will also need the actually nutrient according. There will be harvesting in the plants in every alternate day. So you have to apply nutrients in the almost every day. Some day calcium is very, very important here. Besides the NPK, calcium, zinc, they need to be also applied in a regular interval to keep your crop in a healthy condition and to enable the plants to produce the fruits regularly. Besides, I have told that the sterilization and the solarization of the soil is important to prevent the buildup of the nematode and the other microorganisms. However, drip and the fertigation systems are almost, you can say, the compulsory in these crops when you are doing in a very large scale, because you cannot apply water in a large scale condition. Then transplanting, I don't think you need, but this is the kind of the actually production practices when the sterilization is done, when the crop is over. You need to some kind of the formaldehyde treatment, or you see hydrogen peroxide. Some of the nanomolecules are also available now. Those nanomolecules can be used for the sterilization to prevent the buildup of the nematode, as well as the other soil-borne pathogen, particularly the fusarium and some kind of the bacteria also, which cause the weed. So then thereafter you are using the mulch, and for mulching you can use either the transparent seed or the black seed. That doesn't make much difference. However, the black seeds are generally preferred if you want to actually prevent the growth of any kind of the weeds inside the mulch, so that there will be no transpassing of any light, and all the weeds they will be dried down. And you will be using the recommended dose of the fertilizer before planting, and after planting. Generally, all the fertilizers are applied through the fertigation systems. So these are the different water soluble fertilizer and the fertigation which are being used. But however, you have to take care that besides NPK, calcium is very important, zinc is important, and magnesium is also very important. So you have to combine all these together. If you have the calcium deficiency, you will get some of the fruits which are not in uniform shape. You will have the bending of the fruits and the deformity of the fruits. Similarly for the magnesium also, that is why calcium nitrate and the magnesium sulfates are very important, particularly during the flowering and the fruiting stage. However, during the early vegetative stage, NPK in the soluble solution 19-19-19, they are being used, and each and every day you have to apply this kind of the nutrients, at least in the alternative day. And when you are taking the drip irrigation, it requires, because these plants require a lot of water, because kind of the leaves they have, you see the broad leaves, they have very large leaf surface area, lot of transpiration will be there. So they require a lot of the actually water. So for a drip irrigation, around 1 to 1.5 liter water per plant per day is required. And the soil moisture and the other thing, you can automate it using some kind of the sensors which are related with the tensiometer, so that whenever the soil moisture goes below a 50% of the water holding capacity, automatically your irrigation will be started. However, you should avoid any kind of the water stress as well as the overwatering. Sometimes overwatering is also very dangerous. No. So these are the planting and the pruning structure. And after the actually planting, you have to train the plants, because you cannot have the cucumbers which have the large number of the lateral branches, because you are growing them under the protected conditions. You have to use the vertical space. For using the vertical space, you have to train the plants, and you need to keep the lateral branch very, 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 very minimal. No, and remove all the side shoot up to the 5 to 6 nodes, and you need to allow only 1 or 2 lateral shoots in the upper nodes. And generally most of the fruits will be here in your primary branch, and generally in the lateral branch you will be avoiding it. And periodic pruning, because there will be the lateral branching, so you have to do some kind of the pruning at least in 7 to 10 days interval to remove the large number of the lateral branches and make your structure very, very crowded. So these are the inside the poly house. You can use some kind of the trailing using some kind of your nylon net, as well as some of kind of the sutli, whatever the material you have. But you have to train the plants vertical, so that the plants actually train, they go straight up to at least up to the nearby the top of this poly house. So the entire vertical space is used, and you will be getting the fruits each and every node, so that at least 30 to 40 up to 30 to 35 nodes you can harvest the fruits. No. So these are the actually fertigation and the irrigation, drip irrigation structure which are being used initially, and thereafter you are doing the training. And after the fitting of this irrigation system, drip irrigation, you will be using this kind of the actually trailing structure, particularly some kind of the ropes. In Rajasthan, particularly where the water availability is very low, this area is Baseri village, that is also called the mini Israel in the Jaipur. Here you will see that is particularly a desert area, arid area, where the rainfall is very minimal. However, they are growing the cucumbers without any actually external irrigation. So along with the poly house, they have created some kind of the water harvesting structures with the actually lining in the base with the polythene, so that there is no leaching of the water. And during the rainy season, whatever rain is there, they are harvesting this water, and this water they are using all throughout the year, and which is sufficient to support a 1 acre actually poly house. And they are using the solar power for actually. They are also not using any kind of the external electricity. With solar power, they have created the drip irrigation, fertigation, as well as that is the fan and pad system they are using with the water harvesting, as well as using the solar structure. So these are the actually very progressive farmers in the way they are doing the cucumber inside the net house. And the inside, this is actually the poly house with some kind of a fan and pad structure. And these are the water harvesting structure they are being used in this condition. This is the actually clear picture of the Baseri village. So cucumber cultivation in this particular area has transformed the entire region, because earlier there was some kind of the millets, they were growing the jowar, bajra, but after seeing that cucumber can be cultivated at least thrice in a year, and in 1 acre net house and the poly house, they are getting and actually net profit of around 8 to 10 lakhs per year. So which is actually, that is why they have shifted from the conventional cultivation to the polyhouse cultivation of particularly the cucumber and the color capsicums, and it has become a highly remunerative. And this is a classic example that how protected cultivation can transform a particular area. Here you can see the standard of living of the farmers and the kind of the income they have. That is actually tremendous. So a particular crop can play a very important role in transforming the livelihood and increasing the actually income level of the different family if they are grown very, very scientifically. However, all these farmers, they are highly trained. Many a times they have gone to the different developed nations, including Israel, and they have adopted the different technology. They have actually learned from the Spain, from the Italy, from the Israel, and they have adopted all those technology in their villages. So coming to the actually problem, whenever you are growing in a protected condition in a very long period of the time, there will be the build-up of the space, particularly the insect like aphid, thrips, mites, whitefly. They are a very serious problem under the protected condition. So you have to adopt some kind of the particularly different kind of the biologicals, different kind of the predators. Besides the pesticides, you should also adopt some kind of the biological which are now being coming to the market for control of these pests. And regarding the diseases, most important disease inside will be the downy mildew. Beside downy mildew, there will be powder mildew as well as the leaf curl viruses. If you have some transmission of some kind of the white fly from the outside inside your net house. So you can use the different, besides the your pesticides, you see the cucumbers, they are the salad crops. No? After harvesting, they'll be consumed within 1 or 2 days. So they do not have the time to for degradation of the pesticide, as well as they are not being cooked. So minimal pesticides should be used in these crops. So you can use the different biological actually control methods like the trap, the biological pesticide, neem oil, bovaria, and besides the resistant hybrid. However, the problem is that in most of the protected condition cucumber genotype which are being available, they are susceptible to most of the disease and the pest. No, they are not actually resistant as of now. And you should also ensure proper sanitation, humidity, and the crop rotation. It is not that you will be growing cucumber year after year, then you will be in trouble. So in between, you should do some kind of the maybe the capsicum, maybe the rose in some other crops you should grow in between, and some green manure if possible. If you have some actually time, 1 and 1.5 months in between, you can also grow dhenja, barsim, whatever the green manure available with you. And downy mildew is a very serious problem even under the protected conditions. And here, for actually, you have to maintain the hygiene of the polyhouse. Besides, however, downy mildew, if you detect the downy mildew in early condition, you can control them with proper use of the different pesticides. And these are the schedules for the recommendation for fungicide schedules for a different biological as well as the organic and the inorganic systems. You can integrate them for actually effective control of the downy mildew in these crops. So here, these crops they are the gynosia. So within 35 days, after 35 to 5 days, you will get the actually harvesting, and it will continue for up to the actually around 80 to 85 days. The crop cycle is around 3.5 months. So if you have the healthy crop, you can actually harvest up to the 90 days or the 95 to 100 days, and you need to pick the fruits in every alternate or at least in every third day. And it is possible to get a yield of to 180 tons per hectare under these protected conditions. So with this high yield, even if you have the very high input cost initially, you can compensate that one within the 3 to 4 years. Entire input cost can be compensated with the high yield and the kind of the profit potential it has. No. Then coming to, because my lecture was also assigned for the actually breeding also, no, besides cultivation, and my area of the work is mainly the genetics and breeding. So when we are talking about the actually cucumber for the protected condition, there are two important traits. One is the gynoecious, another is the Parthenocarpic. Gynoecious and the Parthenocarpic, both these traits actually are being studied extensively, and it is known that that the kind of the which are the genes which are associated with particularly the gynoecious, and what kind of the approach you should actually adopt for the successfully transfer of this trait from one genotype to another genotype. For that, these are the different genes. I am not going into the detail of the different genes which are associated with the gynoecious. However, you see there is one gene that is the F locus, what we call, associated with the gynoecious. This F locus has been actually particular candidate gene, that is the ethylene biosynthesis gene, that is the 1-aminocyclopropane carboxylic acid, that is the ACS gene in the chromosome number 6, which is associated with the gynocism in the cucumber. Besides F, another gene that is the recessive one, that is the GY gene, which is also associated with, later on found that associated with the gynoecious in the cucumbers. So these are the two major genes which are being actually identified so far and associated with the gynoecious traits. And this gene is again controlled by another ethylene biosynthesis gene, that is the WIP genes. However, gynosia state is also influenced by the environmental condition and particularly the F locus gene. F locus gene is highly influenced by the environmental conditions and they can reverse to the monoecious or the predominantly gynosia type if you have very high temperature in some of the cases. However, this gene, the GOI, which is called the hard femininity, that is the recessive gene, this gene is found to be the actually very less influenced by the environment, and this gene is now being preferred particularly for the protected cultivation. So these are the different genotypes, actually genotype in the corresponding sex forms, which are associated with the gynosias. If you see it very carefully, I'll share the slides later on with you. You can understand this one. Then one question must be coming to your mind that when we are talking about they are the gynosias and the Parthenocarpic. So if they are gynosia, there is only female flower. So how to produce the seeds? From where we are getting the seeds? There has to be the pollination. So these gynosias in the Parthenocarpic tribe, they are again, the Parthenocarpy is again the not actually hard Parthenocarpy. You can say it is a facultative, not a obligate kind of the Parthenocarpy. In case of the obligate kind of the Parthenocarpy, there will be the no seed set even after pollination. But in this case, facultative Parthenocarpy, there will be the fruit development without pollination. However, if you do the pollination, manual pollination, you will be able to produce the seeds. So seeds will be developed with the pollination. So that is a actually typical case in case of the cucumbers. So in case of the gynosias, they are being sprayed with some of the male flower flower inducing chemical which suppress the ethylene synthesis like silver nitrate earlier we were using and the GA3 we were using, and now we are generally using the silver thiosulfate, which is actually more safe, has less phytotoxicity and the other different side effects as in case of the GA3 and the silver nitrate what we were using earlier. Using the silver nitrate and the silver thiosulfate, if you spray them, you have to spray them twice in the gynosia. So after spraying, after the second spraying, in maybe in an interval of the 7 days, you will get the hermaphrodite flower within 2 to 3 weeks. Then another 1 week it will be required for actually appearance of the male flower. So within the same plant, the male and the female flower will be there for a small window of the 7 to 10 days. Again, the plants will convert into the gynosia. So with the spray of the silver thiosulfate, you will get male flower for 7 to 10 days in those plants, and those male flowers are being used for maintenance of the gynosis Parthenocarpic line as well as for the breeding, to take hybridization, to transfer the actually particular trait, introgression of the gynosias as well as the Parthenocarpy. So you have to induce the male flower in those plants. Then you have to select the desirable plants. Either you self it or you cross it with the particular genotypes. And going to the actually genetics and the molecular mechanism, this is the F locus. I have told you that this is one of the genes which is located particularly in chromosome number 6. And the key genes which are associated with the gynosias are the in cucumber, it is the CS1G and the ACS2 as well as the ACS11. All these genes are together is playing very important role. So if you can knock out the genes, any of these genes, the gynoecious line will be converted into the monoecious line. And with the spray of the silver thiosulfate, the expression of these genes are being suppressed. The expression of this gene is inhibited as a result. Ethylene biosynthesis is inhibited, and the plant is temporarily converting into the male phase for a certain period of time, because you'll see at the end, plant will again convert into the gynoecious stage. However, this gynocism and the appearance of the female flower again highly influenced by the environmental condition. And the silver nitrate and the silver thiosulfate, and nowadays silver thiosulfate are being used for actually in a large scale. Besides this manual, you can develop. You see, you need to have, when you are converting the gynosias and the Parthenocarpy genotype in a particular genotype, so you have to undertake the marker-assisted backcross breeding program for the gynosias as well as the Parthenocarpy together. However, thing is that gynosias and the Parthenocarpy, they are associated with each other. Both the locus are present in the chromosome number 6, and many a times they are tightly linked with each other. So if you have the suitable marker system, it is possible to transfer the gynosias and the Parthenocarpy together into a particular genotypes. No? And coming to the Parthenocarpy, you see that this is the typical phenomena of the actually development of the fruits without fertilization. So here, what is happening? Whenever how the fruits are being developed whenever pollination you are doing, certain mechanism and the certain metabolism is activated, particularly the hormonal systems like your auxin and the gibberellin as well as the cytokine. Their production is suddenly increased after the pollination in case of the non-parthenocarpic type. So parthenocarpic genotype, they have internal mechanism where the concentration of these hormones which are associated with the fruit set as well as the fruit development, internal concentration of these is already very high. As a result, there is normal fruit set as well as their development. However, for proper development, you have to have the suitable environmental conditions also. If your environmental conditions sometimes abruptly high, very high temperature, or the very low temperature, again the parthenocarpic fruit development will be affected. No? And these are the main hormones which are associated with the parthenocarpy, mainly the auxins, that is the indole acetic acid, gibberellins, and mainly the GA3, and the cytokinin, because auxin, you see, they are associated with the initial ovary growth, then they mimic the fertilization signal. So without the actually fertilization, even if you have the very endogenous level of auxin is very high, the fruit set will happen because it will act just like the fertilization. Similarly, the GA3, which will enhance the cell elongation and the fruit enlargement, development of the fruits. And the cytokinin, it is also required for the fruit development because it facilitates the rapid division of the cells and their growth of the enhanced the cell division and the ovary tissues. And the ethylene, it is having the indirect role through the sex expression, particularly the female flower dominance. No? So auxin, gibberellin, and cytokinin, they play very important role in development of the parthenocarpic fruit set. Besides some of the genes which are also being identified for this gene or parthenocarpic trait, like which are mainly associated with the auxin biosynthesis, gibberellin biosynthesis, and some of the transcription factors and genes associated with the ethylene biosynthesis. However, the trait gynosia is much simpler as compared to the parthenocarpic. Parthenocarpic trait is little bit actually complex in nature. It is actually controlled by the multiple factors, not a single hormone is playing a role. Here the multiple genes might be playing a role simultaneously. That is why this gene is bound to be this trait is bound to be the actually polygenic in nature. As I was telling that gynosias and the parthenocarpic, they have some kind of the relationship, and you can transfer them together if you have the suitable marker systems. So you see, in a single node, we are talking about a single fruit. But the multipistillate type now are available where with the single node, you have the number of the fruits per node. So this is one of the actually program what we have taken, the Pusa Parthenocarpic cucumber 6. This is one of the variety from the IRI. We have used this variety as a donor for mapping of the parthenocarpic trait as well as the transfer of the parthenocarpy from this trait into the different cucumber genotypes. And the parthenocarpy was mapped, and we have found in the chromosome number 6 one major loci is there, which a PB of more than 16% actually in the chromosome number 6, and another QTL was also found in the chromosome number 6. So 2 QTL were found in the chromosome number 6. However, some other workers have actually reported some of the QTLs in the chromosome number 7 as well as the chromosome number 1. So we have mapped and developed some of the assistant markers for this trait along with the gynosia traits, and these are being used successfully in transfer of these traits into the integration into the different actually gynosia. So we have trying to convert some of the Indian gynosia type, Indian cucumber type into the parthenocarpic. Because all the cucumbers, gynosia parthenocarpic, what we have, they are the European type, that is the dark green type. However, many of us do not prefer that kind of the cucumber. So if that trait can be introgressed into the Indian cucumber type, it will be very useful and may be very suitable for the future cultivation. And these are some of the hybrids and the line multipistillate line which are being actually developed. And this is the Pusa Uday kind of the parthenocarpic line also we have. Another problem inside the polyhouse is the powdery mildew. So you have the suitable donor as well as the marker system. So using those systems, you can easily introgress the downy mildew and the powdery mildew into your desirable genotypes. So these are some of the cucumber hybrids and the variety which has been bred by the Yeah, right. And the Pusa Parthenocarpic hybrid 1 and the hybrid 2, they are the multipistillate type cucumber, Ganoesius Parthenocarpic cucumbers. Besides, we have some of the donor for the multipistillate type and the Pusa Parthenocarpic 6, which is the original actually from where we are transferring these data into the different Indian type of the cucumbers. So besides the protected, actually these slicing type, you have another actually pickling type of the cucumber, which is called the gherkin. And India is one of the major exporter of this gherkin with more than 1,500 crore export every year. So you have to have some particular kind of the traits, particularly the prickles they have, uniformity grade, and based on this one, the grade 1 pickling type, they should be the premium whole cucumber pickle, which have around 150 to 250 fruits per kilo. So fruits are very small, 3 to 5 centimeter long, and more than 150 fruits per one kilogram you have to have. So these are also very popular in some of the cases, particularly the Bangalore and the other around the area of the Karnataka. And these are some of the actually processing industry, different needs, the different physical, morphological requirement, processing requirement. I've given you in case you require, you can take these slides. So that's all for me from my side. So now this is open for discussion. If anybody has any confusion, any clarification, please let me know.
Thank you, sir.
Should I stop sharing now?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Participants, you can ask the questions now.
Hello.
Yeah.
Very good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Sir, I am Kaldas from PAU Ludhiana.
Yes, Carl.